For decades, it was pretty much a given, right? Canadians love traveling to the U.S. You had the snowbirds flocking to Florida, shoppers hopping across the border for a good deal. It was just a constant flow. But then, in 2025, something changed, big time. That steady stream of traffic heading south, it just froze over. So what on earth happened? Let's get into it.
This quote from journalist Tim Harper just hits the nail on the head. It really captures the mood perfectly. See, for a lot of Canadians, this wasn't some easy travel decision. It was this internal struggle, pitting decades of habit and a real love for visiting the States against this growing wave of national pride and, frankly, political frustration.
And this is what that looks like in real numbers. We're talking a staggering 34% drop in Canadians driving into the U.S. in a single month. That's August 2025 compared to the year before. I mean, this wasn't just a little dip. It was like falling off a cliff. And get this, it was the 8th straight month of major declines. So the question becomes, what could possibly cause something like this?
Well, the answer, when you really look at it, is overwhelmingly political. It was a perfect storm of comments and policy changes coming from the U.S. that created this powerful chill, a chill that spread right across the 49th parallel. And the triggers here? They were super specific. Canadians felt a deep, deep sense of disrespect. I mean, you had rhetoric about Canada becoming the 51st state, and then their own prime minister being called Governor Trudeau. You throw in the economic pressure from new tariffs, plus a new, stricter rule about registering for visits over 30 days. Well, for a lot of people, the message they heard was loud and clear. You are not welcome.
This whole political climate gave rise to something Tim Harper dubbed the Elbows Up movement. Now, this wasn't some organized group. It was more of a national mood, a widespread feeling. It was this sense that Canadians needed to, stand up, protect their sovereignty, and push back in one of the few ways an ordinary person really can, with their wallet. And it's fascinating to watch how that feeling evolved in just a few short months. What kicked off in February as this raw, emotional reaction, calls for boycotts everywhere, it actually got more structured pretty fast. By April, the conversation had shifted to analyzing these new rules and their economic impact. And by June, it was a full-on, sustained reflection on the entire relationship, with a brand new focus on boosting Canada's own tourism industry.
Okay, so we've covered the why. Now let's get into the how much, because the scale of this travel freeze is just massive, and the data paints an incredibly clear picture. Just look at the numbers for June 2025. Compared to the year before, air travel from Canada was down 22%, but travel by car? That fell off a cliff, plunging an even more dramatic 33%. So this wasn't about one way of getting there. Canadians were just staying away, period. Now, to really understand what those percentages mean, you gotta see this number. The year before all this, in 2024, Canadian tourists dropped over $20 billion in the United States. They were, by far, the single biggest source of international tourism money. And suddenly, a huge chunk of that was just gone. This chart from Key Data really shows you where that money and those travel plans went. So, vacation rental bookings that Canadians made for trips inside Canada, yeah, they saw a little dip, down 9%. But bookings for U.S. destinations, they completely cratered, falling 34%. You just can't argue with that shift.
And when you straight up ask Canadians why they stayed home, the reasons are so clearly political and emotional. In these surveys, 64% said tariffs, 61% pointed to political tensions, but look at this last one, 44%, nearly half of them, also said they simply did not feel welcome. This wasn't just about economics, this was personal.
And of course, a shift this big wasn't just some abstract political statement. It had immediate, real-world consequences for American businesses, especially in those border states and popular tourist towns.
And this isn't just data on a chart. Take Richard Clavette. He's a Quebecer who's been running a motel down in Florida for 30 years. He felt this firsthand. He's talking about long-time Canadian customers, people he knows, just canceling their reservations. Some were even willing to lose a $1,000 deposit to do it. His story really makes that economic pain feel tangible, That's a huge, direct hit for a small business owner.
And that pain was really concentrated in certain areas. The U.S. Northeast, for instance, got hit especially hard. In New York State, vacation rental bookings from Canadians just plummeted by an unbelievable 60%. That's almost double the national average decline.
And if we zoom in even closer to a place like Jefferson County, New York, which is right on the border, you can see exactly where the money dried up. Canadian spending in retail shops and grocery stores down by more than half. Spending in restaurants? Cut by nearly 50%. I mean, those are just devastating numbers for any local economy.
So every dollar that wasn't spent in the US had to go somewhere else, right? And for tons of Canadians, the choice was pretty simple. Either explore their own huge, beautiful backyard, or maybe head to other international spots.
This comparison right here is just so stark. The percentage of Canadians who are planning a summer trip to the US, it got cut by more than half, from 23% down to just 10%. And at the exact same time, the number of people planning to travel within Canada jumped from 69% to 77%. It's a massive switch.
And you know what? Canada totally capitalized on this feeling. The government rolled out initiatives like the Canada Strong Pass to get people into parks and museums for free. And the result? Domestic tourism spending was projected to soar, with an 8% lift expected, pumping a record amount of money into the national economy.
It wasn't just a domestic thing, though. Other countries definitely benefited too. Mexico, in particular, saw nearly 12% jump in Canadian visitors in just the first half of the year. It became this really attractive, welcoming alternative for anyone still looking for that sunny international vacation.
So, in the end, the great Canadian travel freeze of 2025 was so much more than a dip in tourism stats. It was this powerful statement about national identity, about respect, and about the very deeply connected but also very fragile relationship between two of the world's closest allies. And it kind of leaves us all with a big question. When a bridge that so many people took for granted starts to crumble, what does it really take to rebuild it?